Constitution, United States of America. It's very explicit in its meaning where it says, people, we the people, shall have the freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is extremely important. Without the freedom of speech, then many of the laws that we have today would have never been passed. No one would have even cared. One thing that has always been true about societies is that the strong prey on the weak, whether if it's slavery, overtaxation, having to give up your religion. Those that have power take advantage of the individual when there aren't rights to protect them. Luckily today we have rights and the power is with the people. These rights that we have today need to be continually fought for, whether if it's speaking our mind when people are being exploited or when something unconstitutional is going on. If the people just sit back and let things continually happen, laws will be intricately passed that will give more and more power to the already powerful. Free speech has always been important throughout history because it has been used to fight for change. When we talk about rights today, they wouldn't have been achieved without free speech. Think about times from the past where freedom of speech has made a difference. There are numerous. Socrates, also known as the father of Greek philosophy and of all philosophy, believed in a nonconformist view. He often referred to God rather than gods and reported being guided by an inner divine voice. He spoke up about it, and the government killed him for it. Galileo was an astronomer who stood up to the church when he discovered the Earth is not the center of the solar system. He was sent to prison and was forced to change his views. If Galileo would have stayed quiet about his discovery, it is quite possible we would still believe the Earth is the center of the solar system. Charles Darwin is the scientist most notably known for coming up with natural selection. His discoveries are the cornerstone to the theory of evolution. If this was back in Galileo and Socrates' time, he too would have been persecuted by the government for his beliefs. Luckily, in 1787, our founding fathers came up with the idea of freedom of speech and added it to the Bill of Rights of the Constitution of America. Ever since that day, American citizens and the world have been empowered to make change by speaking up. The freedom of speech has given a voice to the previously powerless. On August 18, 1920, the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified, and it granted women the right to vote, a right known as women's suffrage. And in 1965, the Voting Rights Act was ratified. It was signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson, and it aimed to overcome legal barriers at the state and local levels that prevented African Americans from exercising their rights to vote, as guaranteed under the 15th Amendment. If you like to read, you should take a gander at a book called 1984 by George Orwell. If not for freedom of speech, there will be a rise in tyrannical leaders whose only goal is to stay in power and turn citizens into sheep that believe anything. A living example of what can happen if freedom of speech is obstructed is what happened in Cuba when Fidel Castro came into power. He showed what can happen if people are quieted and not allowed to speak their minds freely. Even today, there are powers working diligently to take away our rights as citizens. There are protests happening every day. The people cannot allow any kind of censorship. It is a very slippery slope if we allow ourselves to be censored. The freedom of speech is what has allowed activists like Emma Gonzalez, a survivor of a mass shooting, to stand up for her friends that were killed. Her views are very controversial, but I believe that staying quiet is even worse. She is doing a great job. If there was no freedom of speech in America, my family would not have risked their lives coming from Cuba on a small fishing boat. Moreover, countless have even perished just for the opportunity to reach this country and be able to speak their minds without censorship. A government should never restrict freedom of speech.